Hey everyone, this is Jeff. We got another old box of ammo here I want to show you. It's pretty neat, and we're going to try to figure out when this was manufactured. I'd like to thank Scott for donating these shot shells. He gave them to Greg, and Greg thought they'd make a good time capsule kind of box opening video for this channel, and I agreed. I thought it was such a neat box that I'd like to show you guys too. Now the first clue in figuring out when these were made is that 320 handwritten in the corner. At first I thought it was the price, just handwritten on there with a pencil. But even if these were made, let's say 1965, that would be the equivalent of about $32 in today's money, which is a lot for a box of shotgun shells. So we really don't know what that number really means or when it was even written on there. Now, there are a lot of shotgun shell box collectors out there, and there are a lot of websites. I searched for this specific box, could not find any specific dates, so we're just going to have to come down to that good old-fashioned hard-boiled detective work to figure out when these things were actually manufactured. I really like the use of the three primary colors on this box, red, yellow, and blue. Really stands out, and if you put this on a shelf with a bunch of other brands of ammo, this sucker would stand out like a beacon. As you can see, we got a lot of super going on here. We got super speed, super seal crimp, super seal cup wad, and finally at the very bottom we got that weird spelling of stainless, which is a trademark name, I believe, of the type of primer they use. Most likely a non-corrosive primer. Okay, let's flip it around, see what kind of warnings we've got. It mostly pertains to just not using these in old shotguns with Damascus barrels or twist steel barrels. And the other warning is to check your barrel to make sure it's not packed with dirt or somebody put a smaller gauge shell in the gun by mistake. Okay, flipping the box around to the other side, it says these shells are Winchester weatherproofed and are highly resistant to moisture and the effects of climatic changes. Yes, they were worried about climate change back then. No, it just means it when it starts to rain. And it does have a warranty. We warrant the materials and workmanship of these shot shells to be of Winchester standard quality. If you have purchased Winchester shells recently, you know that that standard quality level that they bragged about back then is not so high these days. And that's just my personal opinion. But below that is just some information about the Winchester Western Division, patents, and all that stuff. On the very bottom lid we have some nice artwork there. Boxes today just have more warnings and disclaimers and stuff printed on the bottom of their boxes, so that is kind of neat. And of course you'd never see that when it was sitting on the shelf at the store. So far we don't have too many clues of when these were made. There's no dates printed on the box or anything like that. But let's talk a little bit about the information on the box. These are of course 16 gauge shells. And then it says it has 3 1/4 drams equivalent. Now even shotgun shells sold today have that dram equivalent thing, and you're probably wondering what the heck a dram is. That, believe it or not, is equal to 3 1/4 drams of black powder, which is just under 90 grains of black powder. I don't know why they still use that old school dram measurement, but it's just stuck with shotgun shells for some reason. Now these shells have 1 1/8 ounce of number 7.5 shot. That's just the size of the shot. That's still pretty standard today. But what's interesting here, this load data, even though these are 16 gauge, the load data on these is very similar to 12 gauge shells. The weight, the drams, the shot size, everything. So of course the only difference is the gauge or the bore diameter of these. These may have a higher barrel pressure and even velocity than an equivalent 12 gauge shell. And then finally we see that these are 2 3/4 inch shells. Another kind of archaic measurement which has nothing to do with the length, the actual finished length of the shell, but the length of an uncrimped hole, which is 2 3/4 inches long. Okay, let's open this box up. Let's give it a little sniff. It smells like old cardboard. It reminds me of when I was a kid hanging Christmas ornaments on the tree and the old boxes of old ornaments. You probably know exactly what I'm talking about, but that's what this smells like. Okay, on one inner flap it says more than 10 million Winchester guns and rifles have been sold. That could be a clue if we could figure out the exact date when they hit 10 million. But the other flap holds even better clues. It gives you 3 shotguns they were selling at the time this box was manufactured. The Winchester Model 12 was manufactured between 1912 and 1964. The Model 21 was made between 1930 and 1960. So we know these shells were made before 1960, but not before 1930. But the Model 50 gives us the best clue of all. It was made between 1954 and 1962. So this box of shells was probably made closer to 1954 than it was to 1960, because they're not going to promote a shotgun they're about to discontinue. Okay, let's open up the box and see what kind of condition these nearly 65-year-old shotgun shells are in. And of course, these come from an era where not very many things were made out of plastic yet. These are a paper shell. The brass base is actually made out of solid brass, not brass plated steel like shells are today. Now, as I mentioned, these are paper shells. They took thin paper, ran it through hot wax, and then rolled it onto a mandrel to form a tube. They're probably stronger than plastic holes are today, despite being made out of paper. Now, these have been stored inside the box for these nearly 65 years, and the color is still very vibrant. We have a little tarnishing of the brass there, but for the most part, it's still very shiny and bright. Take a look at the quality of that fold crimp. That's pretty tight, and it's sealed with wax. Because these things are weatherproof so well, I really believe that they would still function today. And this gives you a little better idea of the comparison in size between a 16 and a 12 gauge shell. Also a good comparison in the quality of the crimps. The newer Federal shell is a little bit sloppy. I don't know if I can even find anyone with a 16 gauge shotgun, but it would be interesting to test fire these things someday, and maybe we'll make that happen. Anyway, let's wrap this up. I hope you enjoyed this kind of an opening of a time capsule. On our other old ammo box opening videos, we had a lot of very encouraging comments. It actually stood out how positive it was received by you guys, and we really appreciate that. We really do enjoy reading your comments. We'll try to do these types of videos every once in a while. It's not going to be a regular thing or anything. But anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.